Welcome back to the Got Her Back podcast.
Hi, Shiggy. What you doing?
We back.
We back
It's
up in
Monday.
Oh, yeah, girl.
I'm all excited. Monday's my favorite Got Her Back day.
There you go, girl.
What's new with Maggie?
You know, oh, Lord have mercy, girl. I mean, been around the world now, yeah? I don't know, girl.
What's new with Meg?
Just working, momming.
Yeah.
Getting ready. You know, May's coming up. Taryn's graduating.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So
Yeah.
getting all, like, I'm having a party for him. So getting all the things ready.
Are we having a DJ?
Having a DJ.
Yes.
Yes, hunty.
Always get to count on Megan
Yes.
having a DJ.
Gonna have a DJ. Hey, Mr. DJ.
Maddie has cheer tryouts coming up. Again, we're done. Now we're back. Like we had like a week break. So
Oh.
she got a mental block with her backflip. So she's been backflipping for quite a while. And now that tryouts are coming,
Oh, man.
she just can't do it.
Aw.
And I've been sitting outside with her going, did you hurt yourself or something? She's like, no, I just forgot. I just can't. So we started private tumble last night and she got it like that. I was like,
good.
they were like, you just get a mental block sometimes.
You know, that's
and-
what happened to, what's the gymnast that went to the Olympics? Come on.
There's lots of
Simone.
gymnasts.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Simone Biles.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
happened to her. Like not this Olympics, but the one before that she had to walk away. She got a mental block. And so like literally and as high as she goes and when she twists, I watched a documentary on her on Netflix.
that one
It
is
was
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it explains through all of that. So that makes sense.
That's what's new in our world. Kaysen has his first 7-on-7 game tonight.
Taryn has senior pictures tonight.
And your picks. What's Spency been up to?
Oh, girl, just being her sassy self. Learned to roller skate. I took her roller skating,
Yes.
girl. She is like
She's
roller
good.
Yeah, and she roller skates all around the house. And so I'll probably take her this weekend again. So
She's
she
the roller
loves-
queen.
Girl, first time out there, it was the funniest thing. You even had adults with those like plastic dills, you know, with a V
Yeah.
going. And her butt was like, ooh, skating. And I was like, do you need one of those plastic things? She's like, I don't need that.
She's
And
so athletic.
no, she's going to be my athlete
Yeah.
for sure.
She's-
Taryn's super athletic because he can skateboard his butt off, but he just doesn't care. He's like, eh.
He's not into it.
Yeah, not into it. Her, she's like, the more the merrier. Swimming, soccer,
Yeah.
roller skating, you name it.
Yeah.
She's trying to do it.
We had a hoverboard issue.
Uh-oh.
It plunged into the pool.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So that was fun and scary.
Anyone get hurt?
Nobody got hurt.
That's
she
good.
just hopped off of it and didn't realize that it was on a slope.
Uh-oh.
So you got Gabe going, Maddie, swim. No. And it just zoop into the pool. So we had that happen.
Now, you remember the time that I had the hoverboard accident during COVID, right?
Yeah, longboard.
It was a hover. Like
Oh, it was?
It was a skateboard, a
Yeah,
longboard.
yeah.
But it was electric and it had a trigger and it had like go and stop. And we get like the
Did
boys.
you get confused with the go
No,
and
the
stop?
battery died. The battery
that's what it
died, and I was going down a hill, and I kept going, Taryn, it won't stop. And so he just goes on.
He's
And
probably laughing.
Oh, he didn't even pay attention to me. Him and Max were like down and around the corner, and I start veering to the side, and I think in my head like, okay, you need to dive in the grass and roll and barrel roll. I had shorts on.
If only you would have had Gabriel going, get in the boat.
Swim.
You could have done it.
I know, but I didn't. I hit the lip on the driveway on the cement. Girl, I flipped in the air and landed on my back, and I didn't even know like what. And Max, thank God for Max. He comes back and he's like, Aunt Meg, what do you need from me? And I'm like,
I wish that would have been recorded.
I'm like, call your uncle to come get me. I'm like, because those things, because of the battery pack, they're so heavy. And so I was like, I can't carry this home. Like, I can't even carry myself home. Yeah. They had to come get me in the Jeep.
You were not very independent.
No, it was not good.
On the way
it was not
back.
a good look. And the smart thing, real smart on my part. I went and got the helmet, the knee pads, and the elbow pads
You didn't wear 'em?
afterwards. No, I didn't get them until after I wrecked, but it was like a horse. I forced myself to get back on because if I didn't get back on, I was like, I'll never do it again. So I forced myself. But then I rode it like twice, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But
PTSD.
I proved to myself I could do it. By the way, that was not a good financial investment because I bought all my nephews one during COVID thinking I was the cool aunt. And then after I had a wreck, then Max had a wreck. And he his toenail came off. There was blood everywhere. He rode it one time. Those boys didn't ever get on him again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, boys.
You were like, this was much different in my head.
It was a very good financial, I thought, a financial decision. But
I like this topic that we're talking about today.
Yes.
Because, so what we're going to be talking about today is trying to set yourself up for more, not to be financially stuck in a situation.
Right.
Basically just being proactive, I would say, whether you're in a happy marriage or single or dating or, whatever it may be. I feel like watching my mom, like whenever I was younger, work multiple jobs, kind of feel stuck in a bad situation. I just knew in my mind, like the whole time, like I do not ever want to be there. I think that made me like hyper independent, which is also not a great thing because I don't like to ask for anything. But also I think it would suck to be in that situation. Like think about like our divorces and think about, those situations where we would have been, potentially not been able to make the decision that we made to walk away because we were just stuck financially. That would be a crappy reason to have to stay. But honestly, it's like a very common reason that people stay.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like credit. So, I feel like I'm hyper independent too, clearly, with my mom dying at such a young age. I can remember me and my sister carrying around a checkbook and doing grocery shopping and, tending to the house and all the things at 11, 12. For me, was 11, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, same.
Like, our dad gave us some money, but we were responsible to go get our own school clothes. He didn't go with us. He would give us a budget. We would work off the budget and we would come home and show him what we got with the receipts. And so, learning that at such a young age and learning, here's the value of $1 and here is a budget. And my dad would also give me a budget, like, here's $7 per day, per week. And that was supposed to be for lunch and for breakfast to cover. And that was 30 years ago. So it was pretty good lunch money there or whatever. But I was very picky. And so those types of things and the type of household you're raised in, it can really like either stunt your growth financially, or it can also make you like super independent, or it can make you financially irresponsible, just depending on what values and things you're taught as you're grown up. So if you weren't taught those things in your household as a small child, and didn't go through, you don't necessarily have to go through something tragic to be super independent. It's just necessarily like, okay, am I financially sound or am I not? Some people are just naturally good with money and others are not. And so I think for women, because of your typical household is you've got a lot of stay-at-home moms, typical, it's not always, a lot of stay-at-home moms will handle the finances, but then you have this other set over here that don't
know nothing about the finances.
They don't know how to pay a bill. They don't know how much money they have. They don't know, where to even go to pay a bill, which if you're not in it, if your marriage or your relationship, doesn't even have to be a marriage, if it turns bad all of a sudden, you've got a cheating incident or whatever, or let's just say your spouse dies. Okay, at the very extreme, you need to know where to pay the electric bill, where to pay the gas bill. Is my name on this house? Am I going to be responsible for this house if my husband is the breadwinner and I stay home with the kids? Yes. If you're married, yes. You're gonna. I see so many people in my industry, and you see these GoFundMes on Facebook, and they're using a GoFundMe to take care of a funeral or take care of, like. I've had so many clients that will call and say, did they have life insurance? And then they don't. And it's really sad. It's sad because they lose the house. They lose, they don't have, they've not had a job. Their job was to take care of the kids. And so if you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, you need to make sure that your husband, or if you're going to be a stay-at-home dad, opposite of that, make sure there's life insurance in place. That's, I would say, step number one. If there's one income, and one, if you've got a mix of, or if one income is way higher than the other and you can't pay the bills off your income and you've got the lower income, if it's a mix, then you have to have life insurance or you need investments to supplement that. And most people don't have the investments. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck these days. So you really need to make sure that there's life insurance in place, which is key in order to supplement that in case of death.
Since you work with life insurance a lot, is it hard to get life insurance? Is it expensive?
No,
what are some things
honestly,
people need to
the
know?
best thing to do, and nobody really does this, but honestly, if you get it when in your 20s or 30s, the rate is based off age. It's also, you're more likely to be a lot healthier when you're younger than older. As we get older, you know, things like diabetes come into play, or you get overweight because you've had babies. So it's best to lock it in when you're young and, you know, take it for the term, like lock it in, especially when you buy a house, you need to get like term for like 30 years. So those are good things. Like, let's say you're in a marriage and it's a great marriage. You don't know what the future holds, but it looks great. You know, life insurance is something to protect your family unit in case of loss. Now, if you're in not a great marriage or not a great relationship, then I would recommend that you start doing some things that are probably not ethical, but when looking at a relationship, but to be honest, it's just to make sure that you're protecting yourself.
What would you say was not ethical though?
I would tell if it was a woman, and let's say you have some small children, let's say you have even a part-time job, or let's say the husband makes all the money. I would go to the ATM periodically, and I would start stacking cash to where it's, you know, a little here or a little there, and either I wouldn't keep it at home. I would keep it either with someone safe. If it's cash, maybe go get a safety deposit box at a bank that is not your bank that you bank at, or I would go get another account like a checking or a savings account.
This sounds very crazy, but I have a lot of clients. You know who you are. That actually brought this to my attention, and I was like, wow, that is genius. But they're stay-at-home moms, and when they go and buy groceries, they do like 60 cash back, 40 cash back every time they get groceries. I know that sounds bad, but that's what they use to stack away because it's not an ATM purchase on the withdrawal. It's actually just looks like Kroger or, you know, Central Market or Walmart or anywhere they're going. They just do a little cash back here and there and put that away because they might be in an abusive relationship, or they might be in a scary relationship, or they might not, you know what the future holds. And that's what they'll start doing. And sometimes it's just silly, like because they want to save up for, you know,
Botox or something.
Yeah, Botox or something like that.
Something.
But it's actually funny because I was like, you are so freaking smart. That is awesome. They're like, oh yeah, my, you know, it just looks like more groceries, you know. Inflation.
Those eggs cost $20 today.
They costed way more than normal.
It's a smart way. Like you literally, like if you're not in a good situation, you do have to be very
vigilant.
Yes, and very calculated.
Yeah,
I would say is the word. Calculated for sure. Do you know, like, I know I've shared with you, but I'll share with the audience. I started preparing 6 months ahead of time from when I filed. You know, it was like, you know, when my spouse took a girl to lunch that I knew, it just hit different, right? Like when I didn't know them, I don't know what it was. Like it was like almost like out of sight, out of mind. So once it was a girl that I knew.
More personal.
Right. And I reached out to her, and she was basically said, I don't need permission to go to lunch with your husband or to text him. I was like, that's enough for me. You know, it was like, I don't know if it was a slap in the face or what. So at that point, I took him back, but then I started preparing. He didn't even have a car in his name at the time.
Yeah, you just had a feeling.
Right. And so, no, I just started preparing. So what I did was went to the bank and pulled a favor because he didn't have good credit. And I said, hey, I need for you to approve him on a car loan. I didn't say why. I was just said, hey, I'll make sure he makes the payment. I didn't tell him I was clearly going to file for divorce, but that's what I was going to do. And so I needed to make sure, because I knew how my Postnup read, that said, hey, what's in his name is his name, what's in your name is your name. And so I knew that the judge would make me let him take a car, because he would have to get to and from work. And I kept thinking in my head, I've not come all this time.
I didn't even know you did that.
Oh yeah. I said, I'm not going to go this whole time and let him ruin my credit.
It's smart.
Right. Because I've never paid one thing late my entire 47 years of existence. And so that's of course also a blessing, but it's also making sure that my finances are always in order. I pay on the first of the month, even if it's due on the 15th or the 25th, because that's how I get paid. I get paid on the first of the month. Right. And I just get it out of the way. And so I made sure he had a car in his name. So when it was time to go and it was time to file, I'm like, okay, you take your clothes and your car, because that's what you own. And you get on down the road, And so
that's fair.
I did not want to be stuck paying for, I knew I would be angry about it if I was having to pay a car payment for him to drive, or let him take a car and see if he was going to be responsible enough to pay it on time, and then he would screw my credit just to make me mad. You know what I mean?
I think that, just being proactive, but also, even say you're in a beautiful, happy marriage, just starting to have financial talks, even if they're not the most fun, or they're scary, or maybe your finances aren't the best, but having these open conversations and not tucking your head between your legs type of thing, and understanding, maybe having a book or something where you have logins,
or pull an advisor in, a financial advisor, pull your insurance agent in, pull a third party in. If you're not comfortable enough or don't feel like you can have those type of conversations, then pull a third party in, pull a marriage counselor in, whatever you have to do. And this isn't a good marriage, a bad marriage, any kind of relationship where you live together and you share finances, because you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for the worst of the worst, which is death. You have to be prepared for the worst if one of you decides to part ways. And then on top of that, if you're in an abusive situation, which, that's probably the worst. That's the worst of the worst on this side of it. When you're in a marriage and there's abuse going on, and say you don't work, you don't have the means to leave, or in your head, you don't think. Now, in the state of Texas, it is. If you don't have a postnup or a prenup, it is a community property state. So if you've been living together, so we're loud and clear, if you've been living together for 12 months, and you show yourselves as married, so you wear rings, even if you went to Mexico and got married, or you just say you're married, or I say you're my spouse. If you're positioning yourself to your friends and family as married, then in the state of Texas, you're considered married. Dang. You don't even have to have a marriage certificate. Yeah. So with that being said, everything is community property. So it's 50-50. Now, that doesn't mean that you do need to be some sort of prepared, because you could have a spouse. If you're not on the bank accounts, then think about the dire strait you would be in. That spouse, because it takes time to get in front of a judge. It takes time. How are you going to feed the kids? How are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to house yourself? Yeah. You could stay in the house, or the judge could, if you can't afford the house, the judge could order, either that spouse to pay for the house and whoever's going to stay with the kids to be in it. But that stuff takes time. You can get an emergency hearing.
I don't think people think about that.
No, you really have to be prepared.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, no, we're not married. We're not blah, 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 blah. But that happens to people all the time. Yeah. I've seen it. I've seen that happen to people as well. And you
do have to start thinking about, if you don't have a postnup or a prenup, then you're going to owe child support, spousal support, all the support. And so, if you own a business, here's where I almost felt held hostage in my marriage for the longest time, because I knew, even though I had a postnup, I knew he would make it very difficult, for me to try to leave financially. And in his head, he thought that he was going to be able to, take half of everything that I had built in 20 years. So it was a fight, right? And so that has been such a testimony for me to help other women to be like, look, I wouldn't get married without a prenup. There's no way. There's no way that to this day I would live with somebody without a prenup.
Oh my gosh.
There's no way. No, ma'am. You're not moving in my house, or I'm not moving with you to another house without a contract in place.
I need you to sign right here.
Yeah, for sure. In front of a whole bunch of lawyers.
It sucks too
and notarized.
you have to think that way.
You do.
You know what I mean?
You do.
And a lot of people get really offended when you talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? I know I have a lot of clients that get offended whenever their person brings that up. And I've had conversations with them. It's literally just business. Like,
right.
It's not personal. Even though marriage is personal, it's still a contract. So I don't think people should get so bent out of shape about it and really communicate and vocalize why they feel that way. Like, what is making you uncomfortable with this? You know what I mean?
Let's say you have someone that makes a lot of money or they own a business and their spouse is a stay-at-home mom or dad. If there is a conversation had that they are a stay-at-home and their job is to take care of the house and the home and the kids, then I think they should get 50-50, okay? But if the other spouse is not working or not being consistent with work or running the streets or whatever, then no, you're not going to be, you should not get half of whatever I've worked. If I took my butt to work every day and you're running the streets.
But that's not how the state sees it a lot of times.
Well, of course, if you don't have a prenup or a postnup.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Right. So, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying in my head, like in my situation, had he been a stay-at-home dad and I didn't have to pay for a nanny and all the things, I would have gave him half.
And let's chat about, you actually didn't have a prenup, you had a postnup.
I did.
And I think a lot of people didn't even know there was postnups or whatever. And I think yours was very basic. It was the basic of basic. So it wasn't this huge elaborate thing. It was something that your dad, gave you advice about, like, hey, you might want to do this. You know?
And there was an incident.
And so you did this after the fact.
I did.
And it actually protected you. You weren't so sure. You were very nervous about it through your whole divorce because you heard a lot of talk about it might stand up, it might not. And did they ever give you any reasons why it might not stand up, or was it just come down to the judge's opinion that day?
It would have, but if we went in front of a judge, we didn't make it to a judge. Yeah. We ended up settling in mediation. And honestly, I walked into mediation that day, never, ever in a million years thinking it would settle. I never thought, my two lawyers said, hey, we may get through the child issues today. And then we'll have to come back and mediate a second day.
You were there for so long.
We were there a good 8-10 hours.
Yeah, because I was on pins and needles that day. I'm like,
it was.
Where is she? Why is she not messaging me back? Is it bad? Is she all right?
Yeah. And so once my lawyers, they had the best appellate attorney look at it and say, hey, this is valid. She has the Facebook postings to prove that they got married with the pictures. Because ours was kind of hairy because we went to Mexico and got married and had a ceremony with 30 friends and family, but we never got an actual marriage certificate until 5 years later. And I thought I needed a marriage certificate in the state of Texas to change my name. And that is not true, ladies.
You do not have to get a marriage certificate to change your name.
You can,
If you decide, me and my mom have debates about this, Joyce. We have lots of debates about this because my family is very Southern and Christian, and, I'm Christian as well, but I don't do what people tell me to do.
Right.
I just am rebel spirited. Just because you said so doesn't make me believe it. You know what I mean? I grew up in Pentecostal. I've been in Baptist churches. I've been in all different kinds of churches where they're like, no, if you're going to live with this person, you have to be married. That's not how I operate. I'm not going to let somebody scare me into thinking I have to do that. It's going to be the decision of me and my partner and how we want to do it. It could look many different ways. We could do it traditionally if we decide to do that, which is what I told my mom. We could do it untraditionally if we decide to do that. We might wear rings. We might, I might want to change my name. We might want to go sign a paper. We might just want to do a contract. Who knows? You know what I mean? We have these conversations all the time. Him and I both haven't had the best experiences. And so when me and my mom were getting into this conversation, and bless her, she has the best intentions. She just wants us to be right with the Lord. I'm like, I'm right with the Lord. Like my God is all about love. Like, I love this person. I you know, have a ceremony maybe with this person, a commitment. Tell me in the Bible, show me where they went to a courthouse and signed this piece of paper and they were bound by all of these taxes and laws. And, you know, this was not always the case. It could have just been a commitment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think it should always be on your terms, how you want to do it, how you feel comfortable. What's your past experience been like? Were you totally screwed over? You know what I mean? That'll make you drag your feet for a while.
Rethink. I mean, as hard as it was to get out of my marriage.
Yeah.
And the attorney bill that was ran up just to tell me, yes, it is valid. That day in mediation when they said, hey, we had our appellate attorney look at this and it's valid, it's going to hold up in court. And I was like, so when the mediation attorney tried to come to me and say, hey, you know, like you need to bend on this, like you don't want to go to court. And I said, we can go to court. Yeah. I said, you've already showed me that I'll win on this postnup in court, and he doesn't have the money to go to court. So we can go. So at that point, I kind of started bearing down on him. And I think when he's like, okay, I'll be back. So I just want people to know too, like women, I thought I had to get married to change my name, and you do not.
Wow.
No.
Yeah. I actually did some digging into that because I was changing my name back. When I was changing my name back, we talked about this, changing our name back after divorce and everything. And just like reading about it, I think I was just curious and like went the opposite direction. Like, well, what if I wanted to change my name, but not with a marriage certificate? And it was like, oh yeah, you can totally do it. You don't have to. But that's interesting that's why 5 years later.
I did.
So 5 years later, you got the marriage certificate. Is that when you did the postnup, or did you do that
So
before
I got
that?
married 7/10/10. I did the postnup about a year later. There was a cheating incident. I found text messages.
So you basically did the postnup
after our wedding.
Before your marriage certificate.
Yeah, before the marriage. So that's where it kind of got hairy.
Oh.
And so they thought that they were going to have a leg to stand on, but we wore rings. We posed ourselves as married.
Got it.
And, you know, like had anniversary. Thank God he didn't, but I posted on our anniversary every year, except you can start seeing towards the end, I stopped posting. I didn't have 2 years where there was like another infidelity issue and I didn't post those years, but I was like
not posting this year.
And so I had proof that all those years, like I had first anniversary, second anniversary,
Did it go
third,
back on social media?
all that. Yes.
Social media, isn't
and
it
just
powerful?
so you know too, ladies and gentlemen, once you have to do discovery in a divorce, they give you a great instructions on how to go get your archive. So all those messages that you thought you erased and all those friend requests that you thought that all the women that you had on your Instagram, everything that you've ever liked and hearted and loved, all your inboxes, everything that you thought you got rid of. Guess what? They give you instructions and you pull it all back out. It all comes out, even the deleted stuff. So yes, ma'am. So yes.
They do?
Oh yes. That was in discovery.
Incredible.
Oh yes, ma'am. So I would just like, you know, finances, all the things. You really need to stay like at the forefront. If you don't know how to pay bills, you need to learn how to pay a bill.
At the very least, you need to sit down with your person and have a financial conversation and maybe just
keep an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, keep a spreadsheet. Even if you just write it down, if you don't know how to do Excel.
What are the logins and passwords?
Accounts. Who are the companies that you use for these utilities and things like that? What if something did happen? I mean, that happened to Risa my sister before she even turned 40 years old. She's a widow, you know, and
it can happen at any
there was
time.
A lot of things. I have many clients that have lost their husbands that so much unravels afterwards where they're just like, what, you know, I just think just being very like proactive on the accounts. And
think about too, like when it comes to finances, when you have multiple accounts, you know, like I don't have all my money in one bank, you know, like I have the majority of it at one bank. But, you know, it's also too is like you could lose money because it's a bank, right? And so if you don't know where all the money is at, then how are you going to go retrieve it?
I think that's a great point. I used to have people ask me like in my marriage, like, y'all don't have joint bank accounts or whatever. I also think that is up to the couple. You know what I mean? But I was advised many times in marriage counseling to, start talking about having a joint account so that you are trusting each other. You're being more transparent, and it just is more trusting. I don't think you have to give all your money and access, because I don't think that everybody deserves that. But I don't know. I think it just depends on your situation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I've always had my own account. I think that would be odd to just suddenly not have that. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you a good story. So I had a client, probably, I'm going to say, I'm 20 years in. I'm going to say I was green. So I was like wet behind the ears, right? And so I had this commercial client, and they had a big business, and I'd been insuring them for probably 2, 3, 4 years at this point. So I know them pretty well. I'd go take them to lunch, like on renewal. And one day I got a call from the wife, and she said, Megan, I guess she trusted me enough. I guess she thought of me as an advisor enough. And she said, hey, I've had a private investigator on my husband, and we have discovered that he's cheating. He is cheating on me with his dance instructor. He's supposed to be going for dance lessons.
Nice. Interesting.
And they're having an affair. And I said, okay, so what do you need from me? And she said, well, I'm just calling to let you know that I'm going to put on my Sunday best, and Monday I'm going to go to all 5 banks, and I'm going to withdraw $100,000 from each bank account, and that way I'm sitting on enough money to make it through a divorce. And I said, oh, okay. So she literally went and drove to 5 banks, 5 different banks on a Monday, and they gave her the cash, like in a check. And she went and put it in another account. So she made sure she had enough, money to make it through the divorce.
Yeah.
Now, that's a unique situation where they owned a business together, and there was a lot of money at stake. So, they just thought it was pretty interesting here.
Yeah.
Insurance agent got a call that she was putting on her Sunday best to go into these banks.
Be aware of the accounts. Be aware of your money.
Right.
Have real conversations. Start a savings account for yourself. However you have to do that, whether you trust in a friend and they hold it for you, or you put it in a box, or you put it in a savings account, or whatever you need to do. There's nothing wrong with that.
You could even hide it in the freezer. My Aunt Kathy loves cold cash put in the freezer.
Cold cash.
She calls it her cold cash.
Cold
She
cash.
hides money in the freezer.
Wow. Life insurance, that's great.
Yes.
That's great tips.
And
I'll never forget you telling me to put life insurance on my children too, and how freaky that was for me, because it was hard enough putting it on myself, but then thinking about my children in that way, I was just like,
you really do it for the side, for the cash account that's attached to the side, so you can invest. It's almost like a Roth IRA, but for children. And then, God forbid, it does something happen, like you could have the stabbing that just happened in Frisco at the track meet.
Yeah.
That's been a headline that's, rocked the nation. If something, God forbid, had happened to your kid, then it would pay out that death benefit plus whatever was in the cash account. But the cash account could be used for a down payment on a car, could be used for, college tuition. After you've had the account for 10 years, you can take it out tax-free and interest-free. So it is a great product. Would be like an IUL is what we call them, an indexed universal life policy.
Yeah.
They're great for business owners too. We call them the rich man's Roth IRA. So it's a great way to invest.
Yeah.
And just be diverse.
Interesting. Well, that was a fun topic.
It was fun, girl.
I mean, I love talking about things like that just
All
for
things
women,
finance.
just because I think so many women just think that, they're just trusting and that everything is set, and it doesn't even mean the guy did anything wrong. It could just be passing away, or it could be anything and just being too blind and not understanding anything and putting yourself in a bad situation. But you never want to feel stuck.
Right. Or that you can't leave, or you can't leave an abusive relationship because you don't have the means.
Yeah.
There are women's shelters if it's a worst case scenario. There are a lot of if you Google like help for women's shelters also can set you up to get emergency housing and emergency, you can get food stamps, you can get all the things necessary if you literally have to leave and pack a bag in the worst case scenario, abuse wise, if you have to pack a bag in the middle of the night and leave with your kids if it's that bad. I would never recommend staying, especially keeping your children in that type of environment.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. So at the end of the day, we want you to do whatever you need to do to keep you and your children safe. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. We had the means. Both of us had the means to leave our marriages. We've talked about it several times, but we had
made it
so much easier.
I love that wasn't a deciding factor for me. You know what I mean? That I didn't have to go, well, I guess I'm stuck for a while and I'll tough it out. You know what I mean? That's not a good feeling.
I felt stuck because of my business. And I also thought like I needed to uphold this, image, with the company that I work for. And I realized at the end of the day, I just needed to do what was the best for Megan.
And I think everybody's happy for you for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you want to close this out, Meg?
Sure. We would love for you guys to subscribe to us on all platforms, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We're Meg's Unfiltered.
Inspired by Carrie.
And Got Her Back Podcast.
Bye.
Bye.